The sun was barely awake, but Lagos was already alive. Hawkers were shouting the day's first offers, danfos honked impatiently, and the air was a cocktail of roasted corn, petrol fumes, and salt from the distant ocean breeze. Inside the Eco Royal Hotel, the grandest hall was a hive of activity. White and gold drapes fell from the ceiling in graceful folds, chandeliers gleamed like captured stars, and the scent of freshly cut roses filled the air. It was a day Lagos high society had been buzzing about for months, the wedding of Chibiz Okafor, the only son of Chief Obinna Okafor, a real estate tycoon whose name opened doors and sealed deals. But as the makeup artists, ushers, and event planners darted about, another kind of buzz was building in the corridors, a whisper that began with the stylist, spread to the hotel staff, and would soon shake the entire guest list. In the top suite, Madam Ifunanya Okafor stood before a gilded mirror. Her figure was regal, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. As her stylist, Kemi, zipped up the dress, she paused. This was no Gelianairo outfit. This wasn't even the muted elegance of a designer English gown. This was a wedding gown, white, floor-length, lace-detailed, with a long train that whispered across the carpet. Kemi's hands trembled slightly. "Ma, are you sure? You'll wear this to your son's wedding?" Ifunanya's eyes remained fixed on her reflection. "People will talk, Kemi. But before this day ends, they will understand." By 10 a.m., the hall was a flood of silk, lace, and geli towers so elaborate they could scrape the chandeliers. The women wore their wealth like armor, the men, in crisp agbadas and tailored suits, discussed politics, contracts, and who had the better champagne at their last party. The bride's family, the Anezis, were already seated in a sea of matching peach and gold attire. There were smiles on their faces, but some eyes betrayed tension. The rumors about the Okafor's family dynamics had not gone unnoticed. The double doors opened, and in stepped Madam Ifunanya, flanked by two bridesmaids who seemed as stunned as the guest. A hush swept the room. Conversation started. Folks paused mid-air. All eyes turned to the tall, dignified woman in a bridal gown. "She's wearing a wedding dress," whispered one society matron behind her hand fan. "God forbid. Does she want to compete with the bride?" another hissed. Phones began to tilt discreetly, capturing her every step. Ifunanya walked slowly, deliberately, her gaze fixed ahead, her expression calm. The white gown shimmered under the chandelier's light. The whisper swelled into a wave of confusion. On the groom's side, Chibiz shifted uncomfortably in his seat as his mother approached. His fiancée, Ngozi, clenched her bouquet a little tighter. Chief Okafor's jaw was set, his eyes dark. He didn't rise to greet his wife. Kemi's lips parted as if to ask more, but the older woman's steady gaze silenced her. The guests saw only the spectacle, but what they didn't know was that this gown had a story, one woven with betrayal, heartbreak, and a promise never fulfilled. 30 years earlier, in the small town of Nsaka, Ifunanya was a fresh university graduate. She had dreams of becoming a lawyer, her heart set on building a career before marriage. But love had found her in the form of Obinna Okafor, a charming young businessman with ambition burning in his eyes. Their wedding day was supposed to be the start of their forever. Ifunanya had chosen a simple but elegant white gown, imported second-hand from London, paid for with her small savings. The morning of the wedding, as she dressed in that gown, disaster struck. A sudden knock at her parents' door brought news: Obinna had been in an accident. In the rush to reach him, the ceremony was cancelled. But the accident, though real, wasn't fatal. And in the days that followed, Ifunanya discovered the truth: Obinna's family had arranged for him to marry another woman for political advantage. The gown was folded away, its lace soaking in her tears. Years later, after the political marriage failed, Obinna returned, seeking her forgiveness. Against her family's warnings, she agreed to marry him, this time without a white dress, without celebration, just a quiet registry ceremony. Now, decades later, their son's wedding stirred old wounds. Ifunanya had loved her son fiercely, raising him with values she feared Obina's world of wealth and politics might erode. But in the weeks leading up to the wedding, she'd learned of certain truths about Ngozi's family, truths Chibiz ignored. There were whispers of financial motives, of debts hidden beneath layers of luxury. When she voiced her concerns, Obina silenced her. "This is not your day. Don't spoil it with your suspicions." Her son's eyes had hardened. "Mom, don't make this about you." She knew then, this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a transaction, and her son was part of the bargain. The white gown stayed in its box, a reminder of a day stolen from her. Midway through the reception, after the couple's first dance, the MC announced, "We will now hear from the mother of the groom." Polite applause rose as Ifunanya walked to the stage, the gown strain trailing like a question mark. She took the microphone, her voice steady. "I know some of you are wondering why I chose to wear this today. You think I came to compete with the bride, or to draw attention to myself. But this gown is not about vanity. It is about truth." The hall fell silent. 30 years ago, I was meant to wear this dress on my wedding day. That day was stolen from me by lies and manipulation. I never thought I'd put it on again. But I wear it today to remind my son, and all of you, that marriage is sacred. It must not be entered for money, politics, or power. It must be entered for love, respect, and truth. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Anazi family stiffened. Ngozi's mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She turned to her son. "Chibiz, my prayer for you is that you will not one day look back and realize you traded your happiness for a contract." The reception continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Conversations were sharper, smiles tighter. Chibiz avoided his mother's gaze. Ngozi kept her hand on his arm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Some guests whispered that Ifunanya had gone too far. Others quietly admired her courage. That night, in the hotel corridor, Chibiz knocked on his mother's door. His voice was low. "Mom, you were right. I just don't know how to stop this now." Ifunanya took his hands in hers. "It's never too late to choose truth." 2 months later, the society magazines announced the Chibiz-Ngozi marriage had been called off. No public reasons were given. But those who were there that day knew the seed of doubt had been planted by a mother's words, and a wedding gown she refused to bury. Ifunanya donated the gown to a young bride in her church who couldn't afford one. When asked why, she smiled softly.